Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of August 14th, 2023. The subject of this week's podcast is, well, the fact is, I barely believe it myself. Here we are in the middle of August, and we're still talking about the blackout on DIRECTV caused by Nexstar, the owner of hundreds of stations across the country. This is something, we've seen some blackouts go a long time, but this is one of the longer ones, and it's getting to the point where very soon now both sides are going to have to come to the table and do and say something. Because as we get into September, it's true that the fall TV season isn't really going to be affected, but NFL football is, and that's a lot of money on the table. Some of the stations that are blacked out are those that would carry NFL games on Sundays. And so it's just something that I have to say, it will have to be resolved. There's no question about it. But I thought I'd take a minute and kind of talk about how we got here and why we're here and how this is even allowed to be a thing. First, you have to understand that companies like Nexstar are allowed legally to own as many television stations in as many markets as they want. There's really no limitation to it. And many, many years ago, there used to be, but that was kind of removed. And the feeling is that, with the internet and with so many other forms of media, that there really wasn't a need to prevent companies from owning too many television stations. But when a company like Nexstar gets as big as it is, to where they're touching something ridiculous of well over 60% of the markets out there, when they get to be that big, it becomes a problem negotiating. They tend to get unreasonable, companies like that, when they're that size. Let's all be honest, put the cards on the table. Broadcast television is not as important as it once was, because broadcast television used to be the only television there was. It was that or nothing. And now we have all the pay TV channels, plus all the streaming channels, plus people who just don't even watch passively, plus YouTube and TikTok and social media and whatever. Broadcast TV is just one part of it. And yet, stations like Nexstar refuse to admit that they are getting a smaller and smaller slice of the pie and keep asking for more and more money from pay TV companies like DIRECTV. There's contracts involved, and when those contracts are up, then hopefully you get another contract. And if not, then there's choices. The two parties can agree to continue on the previous contract until a new one is signed, or the company that provides the programming, in this case Nexstar, can demand that the pay TV company, in this case DIRECTV, take the programming down. And that's what they did. Regardless of what you read from partisan newspapers and blogs and anywhere else you tend to get this information, it was completely Nexstar Media's group decision to ask for this, to have all these stations taken down. I mean, let's put cards on the table. They absolutely could have said, okay, we'll keep that up while we're still negotiating in good faith. When they issued that takedown notice, DIRECTV had no other choice but to take those stations down or face legal consequences. So when you look at whose fault it is, I think that's pretty clear. Now, Nexstar will say that DIRECTV wasn't offering enough money, and DIRECTV will say that Nexstar was asking too much money. I don't know, because I'm not looking at the contracts. I do know this. I do know that pay TV costs a lot of people a lot of money. I recently read that streaming costs more in your average household than pay TV now, but even so, pay TV costs a lot of money. And when you're talking about providing so many channels, even a penny here and a penny there tends to add up. And that's why these negotiations can be so tough, and why they can get to the point where a blackout has to happen. But I just have to say, folks, enough already. I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's some sort of money. You got to guess that. But I don't know what the details of it are. But it's getting to the point where Nexstar, you are not getting what you're asking for. That's just not going to happen. And I think that with NFL football coming up, a lot of people stand to lose a lot of money if those broadcasts aren't visible in the markets that need to be serving. And so what will happen, what always happens, is that these deals get made at the very last minute, and everybody comes out and they say it's a good deal. But sooner or later, you got to understand, when those deals are made at the last minute, that's just because somebody caves. Somebody says, okay, enough already. And that means somebody doesn't get what they want. And that means it's not necessarily a great deal. It could be a bad deal for DIRECTV. And if it's a bad deal for DIRECTV, that's another thing you need to understand. A bad deal for DIRECTV is a bad deal for you, the consumer, because it means DIRECTV is paying more for the channel, and that means you're paying more for the channel. So let's look, now that we've seen what the cause of all of this is, let's look at our options. Now, there are some programs that you're going to be able to get that you're going to be able to stream. NFL football is not one of them. But, for example, one of the Nexstar owned stations in my home market is blocked out. And I was able to stream some stuff using their app, using the network's app. Honestly, that's not a great solution, but it is a solution. It's something. A better solution is to get an over-the-air antenna, and then you're not going to ever lose that programming. But you may not be able to record unless you've got some sort of DVR set up, like you can get from Sling or Tableau or one of the other companies that sell that sort of thing. And it may not integrate with your DIRECTV programming the way that you want it to. It's not really optimal either way, but the antenna solution is going to be a better solution. No getting around that. But now is the time, now that it's still early August, now is the time to get that antenna. I'm pretty confident that this is all going to get solved before that kickoff coming on September 7th. I could be wrong though. And the bottom line is, now if you get an antenna, you've got time to set it up, you've got time to understand how it all works before you go into that time period. Another option, by the way, for getting the TV that you want, especially when you talk about sports television, is to go to your local bar, go to your local restaurant, and you will find that chances are they've got DIRECTV. DIRECTV really leads in the bar and restaurant space because they are still able to offer NFL Sunday Ticket, and they are able to offer every single sports package out there. It's proven that sports keeps people in their seats, and when they're in their seats, they are going to order more food, and that's what it really comes down to. So going out and spending some time, spending some money at the local bar is another way you can get that sports programming. It's not going to necessarily help you all the time, though. What would really help would be if we really took an honest look at how this whole system works, because I'm not saying that we need to have some sort of law or government intervention. I'm not saying that. That's not what this site is about. But there does need to be something. There needs to be some sort of understanding that if there isn't an agreement after 30 days of a blackout, maybe there needs to be mandatory arbitration of some sort so that we can just get ahead of this kind of thing. This is not the longest blackout, as I said. It's one of the longest ones for DIRECTV, but Dish has had blackouts that have lasted much, much, much longer than that. They're very customer unfriendly. Nobody wins. And in the end, there would be a great, great benefit to making sure that everybody sat down at the table and got it resolved. Anyway, that's about all I've got to say for this week on the Solid Signal podcast. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. It makes me look good to my boss. And I will see you again next week, and we'll all do it one more time.